The salmonella outbreak has spread further. The government now reporting 1 death associated with salmonella and 61 new cases in 6 more states. More than 220 cases of salmonella have now been reported since April. Health officials still are not certain whether all of the contaminated tomatoes are off the market yet. 23 states have reported cases of salmonella poisoning. And the Food and Drug Administration tonight apparently no closer to disclosing the source of that outbreak. And as Luis Schiavone reports, it was 1 year ago today that the FDA launched what it called a tomato safety initiative to prevent just exactly this kind of outbreak.
The Centers for Disease Control is reporting dozens more confirmed illnesses linked to tainted tomatoes, a total of 228 illnesses, with 25 hospitalizations now in 23 states. That's 6 new states. 1 death has been associated with the outbreak, and it's not over yet.
We would characterize this outbreak as ongoing.
Not only are there no answers about the source of contamination from the Food and Drug Administration,
it is possible that we may not know, but the same is true of any outbreak.
The Government Accountability Office charges that with 80% of the nation's food supply at stake, the FDA seems incapable of explaining how it will execute a recently unveiled food safety plan.
FDA has implemented few of our past food safety-related recommendations. Of 34 recommendations we made since 2004, FDA has fully implemented 7.
The verdict from lawmakers who've been pressing FDA to meet their obligations?
To have Food and Drug come up and say they don't know what to do about it, or how much money they need, or what resources they require, is a shame and a disgrace.
On Capitol Hill, the government's food czar reported that for now, there are no tools in place to track the origin of the latest salmonella outbreak.
Most people, when they've consumed a tomato, just know they've consumed a tomato. They don't know where it came from. And by the time somebody...
You think consumers don't know where their food comes from if it's labeled?
Well, let me ask you a question, if I may.
Sure.
If you've eaten a tomato in the last week, do you know where it came from?
No, because you won't implement country of origin labeling.
Mexico sends 80% of its tomato crop to the U.S., and while Mexico has not been cleared by the FDA, officials say they cannot say that Mexico is the source of the problem. Well, the FDA says it's been in touch with Mexico, but has not sent investigators over the border or to any farms for that matter, because they are not yet able to pinpoint the place that the bad crop came from.
At this point, would we all be forgiven if we thought the FDA was being led by just really a pack of baboons and fools? To hear David Acheson respond to Congressman Stupak with that arrogant nonsense. I mean, what is going on? Why is this administration, why is this agency being permitted to behave and conduct itself like abject idiots?
They really are cornered, and all of the people in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, have confronted them about this, but just because they're being confronted, just because they're cornered, doesn't mean they have the answers, and they don't have the answers because they don't have the infrastructure to give the answers.
Which they have refused to do over the past 7.5 years. A number of statistics. 1/3 of the tomatoes consumed in this country now are imported.
That's right.
83% of those tomato imports come from Mexico. Therefore, does the FDA have any idea what percentage of the tomatoes that have not been cleared originate from Mexico? But that seems to be the real issue. Mexico and Central Florida. Why can't this agency, even though it's run by some of the biggest Neanderthals ever imaginable at the head of an agency, why can't they answer those straightforward questions?
We know from our research that the predominance of the crop that was consumed in the United States for the months of April and May came principally from Mexico and Florida. Now, the FDA was asked during a conference call late this afternoon, why not just say you're looking at Mexico? And they have said, well, we're not going to say that Mexico is guilty until we know for a fact.
Who's asking them to say they're guilty? If you know that the preponderance of the crop comes from Mexico, what idiot would not go down and inspect those crops? They did the same thing in Florida because Florida is the other largest producer, and they put investigators there. Why would they not do the same thing in Mexico?
They say they have been in touch with them. They have exchanges of information, but they have not crossed the border yet. I asked them, is this a diplomatic issue? And they said, oh, no, there's no...
A diplomatic issue when Americans are being sickened and one has died. This administration, this president, this Congress, to tolerate this, I mean, I don't know what in the world the American people are supposed to do. This is just sheer dereliction of duty. It is unconscionable. We're talking about American lives here. So, thank you. Keep on it. Go get it. Thanks, Luis Giovanni. Appreciate it. Well, Mexico tonight is complaining that the FDA's warning about tomatoes is unjustly harming the Mexican tomato industry. The Mexican Department of Agriculture issued a statement today saying, quote, the FDA's unjust action is causing severe damage to Mexico's tomato industry, which provides thousands of jobs. The FDA so far has ruled out 7 countries that export tomatoes to the United States as the source of this outbreak. As I said, 83% of the tomatoes imported into this country originate in Mexico. But the government says it can't rule Mexico out as the source of the outbreak, nor can it in any way remove it as a possible origin of the outbreak. And we will continue to follow this story as best we can. Tonight's poll question is, do you believe the FDA is intentionally failing to disclose and to release the source of these contaminated tomatoes? Yes or no? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll have the results here later in the broadcast. We'd love to hear from you on this issue. The Food and Drug